The Indianapolis Colts are back home to take on the Chicago Bears as they look to avoid an 0-3 start. How can Anthony Richardson rebound against Matt Eberflus's defense? And will the Colts defense finally be able to stop the run? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my colleague at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake must win, in my opinion, for the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. They're coming back at home at Lucas Oil Stadium, but they've got a Bears team that has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They're 1-1 or so far, but as we've seen with this Colts team, no matter who they're facing, they can lose to any team on any given Sunday. They can also beat any team on any given Sunday, but I think we're in for a really good battle on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and there's a lot to play for both of these teams. Right now, I mean, after losing to the Texans, the Bears, they're looking to bounce back. The Colts haven't won a single game yet, and they're going right back to Lucas Oil Stadium. And the last thing they can afford is to allow Caleb Williams to find rhythm early, find confidence early, establish a ground game. Because if they walk out of their 0-3, their playoff chances go from slim to damn near none if you start 0-3.
Exactly. So tonight we are going to preview the Colts matchup with the Bears at Lucas Oil Stadium, and we've got some special guests that we want to introduce to you tonight. We're doing a little bit of a crossover episode with our sister podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network covering the Chicago Bears. Make sure to go check out the Bear Claw podcast on FFSN. We have Pay and Q joining us, the hosts of the Bear Claw podcast. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us tonight for this crossover episode, which looks like it's going to be a really good matchup between two teams that have really athletic quarterbacks, really young quarterbacks that are really expected to take this team to the next level. So, gentlemen, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having us, man.
Appreciate you having us.
Awesome. So we're going to dive right into it tonight, talking about the Colts against the Bears. Let's look at the chat. We've got Sean Contwright. Good to see you, brother, as always. We've got the CFO of Horseshoe Huddle, Patrick Wright. Guys, he's not the actual CFO, but he basically pays for our basically pays our bills because of how much he does send us in super chats. Thank you so much, Patrick. And Patrick has already given his prediction. Colts 19, Bears 14. This is going to be another boring game, but at least the Colts get their first win of the year and the only win they will have until week 7 when they beat the Dolphins at Lucas Oil. 5-12 going to be a long season. Patrick, you've definitely gone from very optimistic to very pessimistic here in a matter of a couple of weeks, but hey, appreciate all of your support as always. We hope that your prediction is not correct, because that'd be a lot of losing football that we're going to have to talk about on this show, but as always, appreciate all of your support. So gentlemen, let's dive right into it here. The Colts 1.5-point favorites at home against the Bears, and I think that's just because they are the home team. This is practically a toss-up. The over-under is 43.5. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth game between these two teams, and it may even come down to which quarterback executes the best. That ends up determining who wins. So from the Bears' perspective, Pay, we'll start with you. What's the season been like so far for the Chicago Bears? Obviously, Caleb Williams coming in the number 1 overall pick, a lot of new faces, but it seems like it hasn't been all roses to start the 2024 season for the Bears.
No, you are correct. It has not been a very triumphant beginning for Caleb Williams' career. The first 8 quarters leaves a lot to be desired. We are getting gradual steps. His first game was pretty bad. I will say that. He didn't turn the ball over and make any ridiculous mistakes in his first game, but 94 yards, a sub 70 QBR, nothing to write home about. The first half in our last game against Houston, you saw those strides. He was getting the ball out. He was moving through his reads, making really nice passes to the sideline. You looked like a pretty good above average quarterback. He finally got over 100 yards, but that second half is where everything fell apart, and not just on him. But I'm gonna leave some meat on the bone for my co-host, and I'll just answer your question. The offensive star that you can probably pay attention to for the Chicago Bears this week is gonna be DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. So before the season, when we did our record prediction, we figured after the first two games we would be 1-1. So the record right now is not the disappointment because as I said on the game review Tuesday, I believe most teams in the NFL that walk into Houston will walk out with a loss. It's going to be a tough place to play. They got an elite quarterback. They got two elite edge rushers. I believe Will Anderson is emerging as an elite edge rusher. They got a good linebacker core. They got a solid secondary. That's not going to be an easy place to win. The frustration with Bears fans with that loss lies in the fact that we're still having issues bringing along highly drafted, coveted quarterback. So it's not exactly the record. It's what we see with the quarterback. If we went in there to Houston and lost by 2 touchdowns, but Caleb threw for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, we'd be feeling a lot better in Chicago right now. But we've seen this movie before with a strong defense and an offense that can't get out of its own way. So that is the cause of some of the angst in Chicago right now.
Yeah, and I think Chicago and Indianapolis are similar in that regard, where you have two very young, very athletic quarterbacks that have sky high potential, but they're just young quarterbacks. They haven't been able to put it all together yet, and there's going to be ups and downs throughout the journey, and it's about having that patience and making sure you're seeing consistent strides. You're not seeing the same mistakes over and over again. That's what's going to determine if Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson are going to be successful with their teams rather than kind of ending up being a bust or a wasted pick and then having to rebuild all over again. But Drake, let's talk about Anthony Richardson here because it's kind of the same way with Caleb Williams, where again, he had a really good first game. I know Caleb didn't necessarily have a great debut. He started looking better in that game against the Texans, but Anthony Richardson in game one, explosive. Didn't have the best completion percentage, but without Anthony Richardson, they're not even in that game against the Houston Texans. Then against the Green Bay Packers, the bottom fell out, really not just for Richardson, but for the entire team. Definitely didn't make the best decisions, had some inaccuracy with the football. The wide receivers, pass catchers certainly didn't help him either. But can Anthony Richardson bounce back against this Bears defense? Looking at it just from a 1,000-foot view, the Bears are only allowing 169.5 yards through the air, which is the 11th best in the NFL. And as far as their run defense is concerned, only 107 yards per game, which is good enough for 13th in the NFL. So we know from past experience that Matt Eberflus loves to limit explosive plays, and I think that's going to be the main strategy here again against Anthony Richardson, is limit that as those explosive plays and make him dink and dunk down the field. But Drake, what do you think? Do you think that Anthony Richardson has a chance to bounce back this week against the Bears, or do you think that it's going to be kind of a struggle like we saw last week against the Packers?
I think it's got a chance to. I mean, he's always got a chance to make an explosive play happen. So I think that even as he showed in week one, if you're under 50%, you can still throw 2 touchdowns and average 22 yards of completion. But like you said, Matt Eberflus, this is week 3. And after that game, what did we say is that defensive coordinator is not going to have too hard of a time figuring out, all right, can't let him throw a 65-yard deep ball. So how about those layups? And that's kind of what Green Bay did, is they had him lost out there. I mean, they had him looking downfield. One time he threw directly to a Packers linebacker, just tried to force it through him, tried to beam a hole through him to Michael Pittman. So I think that it's going to be a tough game for Anthony Richardson. I think that, Chicago is struggling offensively, but the Colts haven't been able to necessarily move the ball offensively at an efficient clip, but they also can't stop the run yet, and they just lost Buckner. So it's like this is going to be a close contest, and I really think it's going to come down to Richardson, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think Eberflus is going to be ready for him.
Now, Q, when you look at this matchup with Anthony Richardson against the Bears defense, where do you think the Bears defense, or which area of the Bears defense do you think is going to give Anthony Richardson the most fits on Sunday?
Allow me to be the villain to Indianapolis. I'm sorry. During the offseason, I was reviewing some young quarterbacks in AFC South, and I made a lot of fans upset because I said, I think Anthony Richardson is going to struggle this year. I don't see him ascending to this superstar level of quarterback. Now, these fans were really excited by the first 4 games he played last year with the big plays. I said, coming out of Florida, there were issues with accuracy. The touchdown to interception ratio was not very good. I think it was 24-17. And I felt like he had a lot of development to do as a passer. I felt like this is the guy that I felt that maybe he should take an approach where he sits the first year and learns the intricacies of the passing game. I think this is a difficult matchup for him. The Bears defense now is they will give you 2 deep looks, but they give a lot of exotic looks in a secondary with pressure, with blitzes. It's not the classic Tampa 2 that Eberflus and that tree has ran in Indianapolis. I mean, you see a lot of single high, you see a lot of blitzing. They're probably gonna make it tough on Anthony Richardson. A lot of the stuff that he struggled with against Green Bay, he's gonna see again. He's gonna see mixed coverages. He's gonna see different coverage looks from pre-snap to post-snap. So I think this is going to be a tough matchup for him. I do think Anthony Richardson is a very talented player. I think he has elite qualities, arm strength, athleticism. But I think he's going to struggle. He hasn't played a lot of football at quarterback, dating back to even high school.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of Colts fans, or at least what Shane Steichen has been saying too, is that's why they want Anthony Richardson to be out there and get as many reps as possible, because the only way he's really going to develop is by getting those live reps. And in a sense, he was able to sit last year, and it wasn't really in his control because he was hurt. But behind the scenes, Shane Steichen and then this Jim Bob Cooter, Cam Turner, they had a plan for Anthony Richardson that while he wasn't playing, he was going through those mental reps. So he basically did have a red shirt season where he was able to kind of learn that he was getting special projects from Shane Steichen to better understand NFL defensive concepts and how to attack those. So I think on the mental side of things, I think that's where he really improved. But again, it's a different animal when you're translating it to live reps. Yeah. Exactly. So that's where we're going to see. And that's why there's going to be plenty of ups and downs this year where Anthony Richardson looks really good. And other times, like against the Packers, where he's going to struggle. It's really going to be about how he's able to overcome that. You don't want to see him making the same mistakes over and over again. But again, that steady progression throughout the years, I think what if you're a realistic Colts fan, you're wanting to see. Unrealistic, you're probably thinking, oh, this guy's going to be a Pro Bowler and All-Pro from year one. It's just not how it goes. Most young quarterbacks, that's not how it goes.
And to the Packers' credit, I've seen this before. They do an excellent job of installing a defensive game plan for mobile quarterbacks. Justin Fields struggled with the Packers last year too. They're not going to give up explosive plays on the ground or deep passes. The Packers, they will frustrate a young mobile quarterback. They did it to Justin Fields all through his time. So I was surprised that Anthony Richardson struggled against that Packers defense. They do well against mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, they do. And Pay, when you look at this again, this matchup between Anthony Richardson and the Bears defense, where do you think the biggest weakness is amongst this Bears defense, or how this Colts passing attack? If you were Shane Steichen and you were looking at this Bears defense, where do you think that the Colts should attack this defense, and where do you think they would likely have the most success?
I don't necessarily believe that there's an actual weak point on the defense for the Bears. But to answer the question, if there was a place to attack, I would get Michael Pittman involved. He hasn't really been involved to this point yet in this season. Alec Pierce is getting a lot of the work, but
I love Alec Pierce, by the way. I love Alec Pierce. Yeah,
I,
that kid is going to be a stud. Yes, I love
I
Alec
love
Pierce.
I love how I was able to get him for very little fab this week in fantasy. But
I got
Michael Pierce,
outbid everywhere. I got him on one team. I drafted him on one team. Thank God.
That was a
I
smart
couldn't
move.
get him on. Yeah. I got him early, but my receivers are loaded. I got Ayuk on that team. I got Rashid Rice. I got Rashid in New Orleans. So I got a loaded receiver room on that team.
There you go. There you go.
Michael Pittman, he's a big receiver. He's a big guy. As you saw with this past game on Sunday Night Football, Tyreek Stevenson, who is also a very big cornerback, he had a little issue with very physical, and sometimes that gets him in trouble.
Yeah.
Nico Collins, he had a little issue with him. Nico Collins and Nico can do that to anybody, but Tyreek Stevenson could not defend him every time he was lined up over Nico. If there was a place to attack the Bears, it would have to be isolate Pittman on Tyreek and try to play basketball, try to box him out and use your body against him.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Stats Matt as well saying place to attack is Tyreek Stevenson. And I think obviously with Jalen Jones being an all pro, you're not necessarily going to want to test him too often. But I think that the Colts can use some of that. They definitely need to get Michael Pittman more involved. He hasn't been very involved these first 2 weeks. It has been the Alec Pierce show, and I think that's what we've been wanting to see out of Alec Pierce. The Colts have just needed a quarterback that can take that fits his strengths, fits his speed, is able to unleash the deep ball. Alec Pierce has definitely grown and been the most impressive wide receiver that the Colts have. And I think that the Colts should try to get Pittman more involved, because when Pittman is catching the football, he's able to move the chains. That's how you're going to sustain drives. That's something that the guys desperately need to have moving forward for this Colts offense. Stats Matt saying, ask the guys if we can swap Jalen Jones for Jalen Johnson this week. Hey, I mean, I'm all about it if you guys are. I think that's a fair trade in my opinion. But
we actually got a Jalen Jones too. So, I know you all got a corner named Jalen Jones. You can have our Jalen Jones.
There we go.
You all know the rule. You all know the rule of two for the Sith. It can only be one. Like Highlander, it can only be one. We already got a Jalen Jones, like my boy Q said. I'm sorry, can't do it.
We got a couple super chats in here.
If you want to hand us to the Forrest Buckner, hey, we'd be very grateful. Your neighbors to the west, we could definitely use an interior lineman, an animal like that.
I think Chris Ballard is already on the hot seat amongst some fans. He'd be run out of town if DeForest Buckner was shipped out of Indy, that's for sure. Semper Colts fans saying, stop falling in love with a play call sheet and do what works, run the ball. I think the Colts will try to run the football a little bit more this weekend for sure. Thank you, Semper Colts fan, for all of your support. And we have Patrick again here saying that the wide receivers the Bears have will shred this poop soup secondary. Major battle in this game is the Colts defensive line versus the Bears O-line. Got to get Williams off his rhythm. Then they'll just let Swift and Williams gain 327 yards rushing. I think, and we'll talk about that here a little bit later in the show, but it does seem like the Bears, at least from the outside, the Bears offensive line hasn't had the best start to the season. But again, the Colts rush defense has been abysmal any season. Hey, Colts fans,
every season.
Colts fans were there, and now the Colts offensive line is pretty much the best unit on this football team. So Patrick, again, thank you all so much for all of your support. But Semper Colts fan kind of is going to kind of get us onto our next segment. That's Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, there was a huge stink last week that Jonathan Taylor wasn't playing in the fourth quarter of the game, and he defended Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen went into detail about how, because they were throwing the football, Jonathan Taylor wasn't necessarily out there. And when you're looking at this objectively, Jonathan Taylor's a fantastic rusher. but he's not the best in pass protection. He's not a great third down back. So you can kind of see why Jonathan Taylor isn't out there, but there's also the argument you want your best offensive player out there to at least provide some misdirection or use him as a decoy, make the defense honest about him. So Drake, I want to get you back into the fold here, buddy. With Jonathan Taylor, I do think that the Colts should try to lean on him a little bit more, lean on this run game a little bit more, because so that way you're not putting all of the pressure on the back of Anthony Richardson to win throwing the football. You've got Jonathan Taylor there for a purpose. Use him and use him often. I think that could be a way that the Colts could attack and soften up this Bears defense early on, is by getting Jonathan Taylor involved. What do you think?
Yeah, and when you look at their time of possession in their last two games, you're looking at about 40 minutes total. So that's about 20 minutes a game. Their last game was 19 minutes. Just absolutely they're just getting their tails kicked in time of possession. And it's simple. They're just not running the football enough. And Jonathan Taylor, 12 carries, 103 yards, I think, on the ground. That's only 5 yards away from 9 per carry. I mean, that's just incredible efficiency. Only had 14 total touches with the 2 catches, had 2 drops. But one of those plays was to Trey Sermon, which was an option play, which was a run play, which is not a third down pass. So I know Steichen, obviously we're the analysts here and he's the coach, but that could have definitely probably used, a skosh of 28, taking the tote on that one. So I think that you need to get Taylor 20 touches, whether that's, 17-3, 16-4, 20 and nothing else or more. You got to get Taylor involved in the game. Don't put it all on Richardson where he's dropping back more than 30 times. He's an athletic quarterback that takes downfield shots right now. That's what his strengths are, is athleticism and throwing the ball downfield and quick reads with the RPO system. So I think you need to make it simple on him. Lean on 28, and when it's third and short, don't overthink it. Don't be a savvy play caller. Just get the first down.
Yeah, and Shane Steichen had talked about it, that on that third down play too, there was the pitch to Trey Sermon. The Colts were planning on going for it on fourth down. Only thing is they lost yardage. They had to try to kick the field goal, ended up missing the field goal with Matt Gay continuing to struggle, but that Jonathan Taylor would have been in there on that fourth down. Well, to help ensure that they get that first down, Jonathan Taylor should be in there on that third down, in my opinion. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the rush defense for the Chicago Bears, because I think that they're really solid in the middle there. They've got a really good linebacking core, and obviously they've got Montez Sweat on the defensive line. But I think in recent years, at least since Matt Eberflus has been there, they haven't really found that 3 technique, or that guy in the middle that they can build this defense around. So do you think that the Colts offensive line would be able to take advantage of that, or do you think this is going to be a really even matchup in the trenches in the Colts O-line and the Bears D-line?
Based on you all's rushing success last week, I think Jonathan Taylor averaged close to 10 yards per carry.
He had 12 carries for 103 yards.
About that. So I will give it a puncher's chance, to be honest with you. You're correct. We have not found a top of the league, or at least top of the half league 3 technique. We have some hope for Javon Dexter.
Yeah, he's played really well this year thus far, and he's a second round pick from last year. He's ascending.
He's coming on. He's making his way. He's walking that path to be there one day. But as of right now, no. To your question, we have not gotten that 3 technique. It's one of the many failures of this regime when it comes to rebuilding after tearing down the studs from the last regime. I do think you have the opportunity to be able to run on this Bears team with some semblance of success. Now, the Bears, the last 2 years underneath Matt Eberflus, have not been a team that allows teams to run on them with great success. So, and the worst tackler on our team is no longer there. Eddie Jackson, he's gone. He's in Baltimore right now. I don't know if he's still allowed to be in Baltimore, but he's there. Last I checked. So we've got some sure tacklers. Whether or not Jonathan Taylor can get to the second level we'll have to find out. But once he gets there, he's going to be met by Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, and those guys do not play around.
Now, Drake, what about the quarterback run game? Could have an impact on this with Anthony Richardson. Obviously, he wasn't able to use it very much against the Green Bay Packers because the Colts were down a lot of the time. But how do you think that the quarterback run game could be used to an advantage here with not only leaning on Jonathan Taylor, but using Anthony Richardson's legs and really in a way getting him into a rhythm that way as well, not just through the air?
Well, I think that, going right back to the linebackers that were just mentioned, you can't just. I think that you're going to have to give them something else to think about other than just Anthony Richardson. You're probably going to have to get Taylor going at first, maybe some RPOs, maybe just some quick reads to the outside throws, screens, whatever. Because Edmonds, first off, is a fantastic linebacker, and then Edwards is also a fantastic linebacker. I mean, that's a tandem that you don't really hear about a lot in the NFL. But my goodness, they can play the pass. They can play the run. They don't get fooled a lot in open space, and they're good tacklers. So it's like I really think that you're going to need to dominate the middle of that Bears defensive line and get those guards or center or whatever combination to that second level, similar to the way the Packers kind of beat the crap out of the Colts. You saw Zaire Franklin, you saw 44 getting shoved backwards a lot. So if they could do that against the Bears, really start wearing down those linebackers, maybe then you could start to pop off some runs with AR.
Want to give a shout out to my beautiful wife Danielle for her nightly super sticker. Thank you all so much for all of your support.
Hell yeah.
Love to see it as always. Thank you so much. And then I think an underrated matchup in this game is going to be Josh Downs coming in and having his season debut. I think that is really going to help this Colts offense, in particular in the short to intermediate area, where the Colts in the passing game have not had much success so far this season. I think Josh Downs is going to be critical in that regard. And we did have another question from Stats Matt here that says, how is the Bears slot defense? Haven't gotten to see much of that yet. So I'll hand it over to you guys. Q, if you want to start, how are the Bears in the slot, and is that an area of strength for this team?
Let them know, Q.
Kyler Gordon is a stud. He is a stud. He's probably our second best corner, and he's kind of flies under the radar because he had an injury last year, but this is the guy that is physical. He tackles well. He's sticky in coverage. We really like him in Chicago. Yeah, he's probably our second best corner, our second best guy in the secondary. I think he's a potential Pro Bowler. He is a fantastic athlete in that slot. There's not a lot of action. We don't worry as Bears fans about Kyler Gordon in the slot. Last week he took on Stephon Diggs. I think he held him 3 catches, 30 yards. I think he got beat one time, but other than that, he has Stephon Diggs pretty much locked up.
Oh, and he has great instinct. That should have
great
been,
instinct.
It should have been a pick six. that type of, he has seen CJ Stroud go to that delayed slant one too many times. Said, next time you try it on my side, I'm taking it. It was just a hair too slow jumping on the pass, and we would have won the game. I'm sorry, Kyler Gordon. Like my boy Q said, Kyler Gordon is a dog. He just hasn't gotten the
doesn't have the name
national,
yet, but
he hasn't gotten the recognition yet, but he's coming. Pause.
It sounds like he's a young Kenny Moore in that regard. Kenny Moore is big on instinct. He's out there, and that's what I think you have to have in the slot because things happen so fast. You can't be a guy that sits there and has to think things through. It's a lot of it is on instinct. A lot of it is on feel of whether the ball is coming your way or not. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Patrick, you're an absolute menace. I see that the comment in the chat already.
What did Pat say?
Listen, as far as Chicago sports is concerned, Dennis Rodman is the best ever versus the slot.
Wow.
Listen, buddy. Patrick, you're an absolute menace. But Drake
drop that, and it's not even football.
Yeah, there we go. And that's why Patrick is the legend. So, but Drake, to kind of wrap up our talk on the Colts offense versus the Bears defense here, where do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest mismatch among this group. Before you do that, I do want to give the stats Matt stat of the day. It is for Jonathan Taylor. Since he came into the NFL, he's only been used 19% on third down due to the issues in the passing game. So that's it's a really big stat and something you might not necessarily think about because Jonathan Taylor is seen as a 3-down back. He's not out there very much on third down. So thank you, stats Matt, for that. But Drake, where do you think in this matchup between Colts offense and Bears defense, where do you think the biggest mismatch is for the Colts that you think they should try to exploit?
You know what? I really like what was said earlier about they still don't have the interior, secured on the defensive line. I think that you need to give Jonathan Taylor the football, and you need to just absolutely try to exploit those interior gaps, because if you can't get Taylor going, I really do think that the Bears. I love what they said earlier about Edmonds and Edwards. Those are a couple of linebackers that are very good, and if you don't challenge these guys and give them linemen to have to get around for run defense, they're going to eat Taylor alive. They're going to be meeting him in those gaps. So I think that they got to take the interior, maybe even make an absolutely gritty type of game out of it.
All right, now let's move on to the matchup between the Colts defense and the Bears offense. And guys, this is where we're going to see kind of bad versus bad. We're talking about the atrocious Colts run defense, historically bad Colts run defense against a Bears rushing offense that, while it's not the worst in the league, they admittedly struggle. They're still trying to get things figured out with DeAndre Swift in there. The Bears are 28th in the NFL in rushing, and the Colts obviously last in the NFL in run defense. So perfect opportunity for both of these squads to really take advantage of it, for each squad to get back on track in these particular areas. This may also be one of the areas where whichever team can actually get on track in this particular regard may come out on top. So I want to kick it off with the Bear Claw group here. What do you think the issue has been so far with the rushing attack of the Bears? Because obviously bringing DeAndre Swift over, Caleb Williams can certainly run with the football at times. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's mobile. He can pick up some yards with his legs. What's been the issue with the running game of the Bears?
Go ahead and tell them, Q. You started off.
The offensive linemen are terrible. That's the biggest issue. Not only that, I mean, seeing the film, Waldron is installing an outside zone. I don't know if he has the pieces to run this. I see Shelton getting out. He can't reach and get to the linebackers. DeAndre Swift has no holes. I wish they would just go hat on hat, just downhill running game. Stop with this. Get a hat on the hat, because this outside zone is not working. I mean, linebackers are getting in the gaps. They're getting in their run fits. They're hitting them in the backfield. The run game was much better last year. It's an issue of talent, and it's an issue of learning a new scheme. Bad combination. Thank God DeForest Buckner is not playing Sunday. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be huge for this matchup. Is DeForest Buckner is not in there. He wasn't in there last week either for much of the game, because he was dealing with a back issue. Was really only playing on third downs. Then gets rolled up on, lands on his own ankle, and being at that game, it looked really bad live. It looked even worse on the replay. And the Colts dodged a major bullet with DeForest Buckner not breaking his ankle and only being, it seems, a high ankle sprain. Yes, he is on IR, but it's not season ending. So, but until then, the guys behind DeForest Buckner, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Taven Bryan is probably going to get the start at 3 technique. And Taven Bryan, you guys know me. I am no fan of Taven Bryan. I don't think Taven Bryan should be on an NFL roster, in my opinion, when you look at how what he puts on film. But he just
one of those too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's Matt. We've had it in the past with Matt Pryor. I've given more than my 2 cents on.
Oh yeah,
Matt
you guys
Pryor.
know about Matt Pryor, yeah.
So Hey, I'll
You're
say
like,
a prayer
don't
for you
bring
guys.
up that name. Come
I'll
on,
say a
man.
prayer for you guys, but Taven Bryan just gets moved so easily in the run game, and he's more of a pass rushing specialist. I get it, but again, I think that's on the Colts coaches as well for trying to use him in that regard as a guy that plays against the run on early downs. Put someone like Raekwon Davis, who is a good 6'5", 6'6". I think he's 6'7", actually, 300 pounds. Put him in there with Grover Stewart just to eat up those double teams. I think that's better than having Taven Bryan in there. But Drake, when you look at this, this matchup, and obviously Taven Bryan is likely going to get the start at that 3 technique. How concerned are you about this Colts defensive line moving forward? Not even just against this Bears front, which it seems like the Bears front is struggling, but they and the Colts might have a chance to get right. But do you think realistically, with the personnel that they have, that is going to be a possibility?
I think if we're talking about the here and now, both the Bears running attack and the Colts defense or run defense, they both simultaneously have a get right performance here. Because like if we're talking about the Colts though and their defensive front with Taven Bryan, Adetomo Adebawore, Raekwon Davis alongside Grover Stewart, I think there's cause for concern, man. I think that you need to play a lot more Raekwon Davis and maybe play Taven Bryan on third downs more because he is more of your pass rusher from the interior. Okay, but guess what? He is a full-blown bust. He is a first-round selection from the 2018 draft, and he has done diddly-poo in his NFL career. So I am concerned when Taven Bryan faces any NFL lineman. Honestly, I know that sounds really intense to say, but you got to be honest when you're covering the NFL. And I'm worried.
Wait till he gets to meet Damon. Wait till he gets to meet Coleman Shelton. Coleman might turn him into a stud. You might think he's Aaron Donald. Once he gets to face Nate Davis and Coleman Shelton.
Listen, are we talking about the Taven Bryan revenge game where it makes Andrew Morton?
Oh, listen. I don't.
Goes out, gets 3
Coleman
sacks.
Shelton might.
So dumb. Yeah.
Coleman Shelton might be the worst interior lineman starting in NFL right now.
That says a lot because we had the worst interior lineman in the NFL last year.
We had Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair, and Coleman might be worse.
Listen to us talking about our teams.
I like what Stats Matt said. It's going to be the battle of movable objects. Honestly, let's see. So which and then Matt Pryor versus Taven Bryan, battle of the forces, definitely. Battle of the movable forces. They're just going to be taking turns being turnstiles with one another. But another thing that Colts defensive line has to worry about is Caleb Williams, honestly, and his ability to extend plays. That was one of the biggest upsides of Caleb Williams, and it was something that he is known for, is just his ability to dance around the pocket, extend plays, and make fantastic throws when the play breaks down. So I think it's going to be imperative for the Colts to keep, this is a term I like to use, is keep Caleb Williams in the well. Don't allow him to get outside the pocket, keep him contained in there, so that way the plays outside of structure aren't as prevalent. So I wanted to ask you this, obviously very, very small sample size from Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears, but how has Caleb Williams performed inside the pocket versus outside so far in his NFL career? And do you notice a major difference when he's able to get outside and kind of extend the play?
That was one of the high points for his scouting report, was his ability to have great pocket awareness and move around the rush, while keeping his eyes down the field and extend plays if he has to get out of the pocket. That was probably what the scouts salivated over the most about Caleb. And from the 8 quarters that we've seen so far, not counting when he had no time to process anything down the field because the offensive line just was destroyed very early, I would give him a B+ just on his ability to, again, sit in the pocket, move around, evade the pressure, and while keeping his eyes down the field. He's made some great plays in just these first 2 games, just doing that. I remember we talked about this last year, Q, in one of our game previews. Justin Fields made one of the greatest plays you'll never talk about when he was just getting away from getting away from a sack. I forgot who was trying to pull him.
Aaron Miles was it against Cleveland?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was. Caleb Williams did something almost as extraordinary Sunday when he Will Anderson had him dead to rights, and he didn't get touched at all. So with that being said, the one thing that Caleb did struggle with in the second half of this last game against the Houston Texans is sights. Pre-snap, noticing, okay, look, I can see this guy.
Where the pressure's coming from.
I can see this guy's coming. Pause. And making the adequate corrections to that, doing the pre-snap work. And that, again, he's only been a pro for 8 quarters a snap, right? These are the things that experience will teach him. But as far as the athletic ability and just the natural poise in it, playing the position, he's passing that.
Yeah, I think this is another instance where DeForest Buckner being out is really going to hurt the Indianapolis Colts, because you don't have as dynamic of a pass rusher on the interior as DeForest Buckner. Sure, you can move Dio Odangbo inside, Tyquan Lewis inside, but they're not going to replicate what DeForest Buckner brings and the amount of double teams that DeForest Buckner is going to get on every single throughout the game. Obviously, Latu is dealing with a hip injury, so he hasn't practiced the past 2 days. Are the Colts going to even have their first round pick out there this year to be able to pressure Caleb Williams? And when you turn on Latu's college tape, one of the best games he had in his time at UCLA was against USC and Caleb Williams. So it's the thing is, not having Latu out there, not having him out there at full strength, I think that definitely hurts the Colts in that regard. But you have Kwity Paye, who has, I think, taken another step. He was a little hindered last week with the hamstring, but looks good to go this week. Tyquan Lewis has looked better. But again, I think ultimately it's going to come down to keeping Caleb Williams in the pocket, forcing him to read the defense, forcing him to make those decisions. I think it goes on Gus Bradley as well to not make things simple on Caleb Williams. Don't allow him to be able to take a 3-step drop and quickly get that ball out to one of the many wide receivers that he has, or even Cole Kmet there at tight end. You want Caleb to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, not make it easy for him to get into a rhythm, just go to his first read, because and then you'll find a situation where Caleb Williams is just tearing up the Colts all the way down the field. Patrick, another super chat. Thank you so much for all of your support. And Patrick has a fun question for you guys. The CFO asks, if Justin Fields plays all season and leads the Steelers to the playoffs, or maybe even a division title, will Bears fans still be fine with the Williams decision, or will there be some remorse? Guys, I'm turning it over to you.
Oh, Patrick,
trying to pull on your guys'
Williams versus Fields civil war continues in Chicago. To this day, it's still happening. So in Chicago Bears Facebook group, message boards, talk radio, there are still people saying they should have kept Fields and take the Hall. It's like a civil war with the Fields versus Williams thing. And Fields is gone, so it's only going to continue to be fueled. If Fields goes out there and wins the 3rd straight, I think they got who do they got this weekend? Is it the Broncos? No, they just played the Broncos, right?
Yeah, they just played the Broncos.
I think it's the
Who
Bengals.
do they have?
I think they do have the Browns. I think they have a division game this week.
They play the Chargers.
They've got the
at
Chargers.
home.
They play the Chargers. That's right. If he wins a 3rd game and Caleb remotely struggles or the Bears lose, it's going to be there are fans that already have their moves. We even have a faction of Tyson Bagent truthers. So yeah, Chicago's always divided with the quarterbacks. It's pretty bad here.
I've heard plenty of Tyson Bagent. Plenty of
Oh, I have no energy to entertain that type of conversation. But for the Fields and Williams debate, just as the question as Patrick laid out, Williams winning in Pittsburgh only tells you one thing: that Mike Tomlin is great at his job. That's all that is. The Pittsburgh Steelers, even though I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are as great as their fans think they are, I think they're an average team, maybe a little bit better, a 9 to 10 win team. Just because
well coached.
They're very well coached, and they have and they have I would say it, the best defensive player in the league. He wins games by himself. That's how good TJ Watt is. If Justin Fields goes there and leads them to another playoff appearance, and you expect them to have a winning season because Mike Tomlin doesn't lose, right? So that doesn't tell me anything about whether the Bears should have kept Justin Fields or not, because he wasn't doing it in Chicago. He had 3 seasons to prove that in Chicago. We just had an infrastructure. We don't have Mike Tomlin. We have Matt Eberflus. We don't have TJ Watt. We have TJ Edwards. We don't have what they have over there. They have a structure that we're trying to emulate. What we should have done is the exact thing that we did do. We gave Justin, we gave him his goodbyes. We let him pick his destination, and he's going over there and flourish. I wish him nothing but the best. But Williams, rookie, he's a rookie contract. That's what we need right now. And B, he's someone that can be molded into a better player than Justin Fields is right now. And that's where we at right now. And I would take that 10 out of 10 times.
Patrick, thank you so much for all of your support, brother. Really, really do appreciate it. And Patrick just says, not going to lie, gentlemen, I was on the Keep Fields draft Marvin Harrison Jr. train myself. That would have been interesting. But hey, I think the Bears have plenty of wide receivers there. And that kind of leads me to my next point. Before we do that, though, you guys talked about how there's a lot of Tyson Bagent truthers there in Chicago. A lot of Colts fans would like to see Sam Ellinger out there as the Colts starting quarterback. So we know how that goes.
Really?
Yes, there's a lot of people that would love
for people that follow the team deeply, like, and this is just the truth. You know, when you hear that, you're like, you guys really don't want to see that. As you guys probably know,
no, you don't.
Facebook comments and Facebook groups, it's a scary sight at times. So, but moving on to the wide receiver conversation. Obviously, Keenan Allen has a heel injury currently. He might miss his second straight game. Rome Odunze is dealing with an injury of his own, but it seems like he'll probably play. Obviously, you have DJ Moore, who is very reliable, fantastic wide receiver, and they're going up against a secondary for the Indianapolis Colts that is very young, very inexperienced, and doesn't have a lot of high-profile guys outside of Kenny Moore. Julian Blackmon is coming back, it looks like, this week as well. But you've got Jalen Jones on one side. You have a combination of Dallas Flowers and Sam Womack III on the other, because Juju Brents is now out for the year. Nick Cross has been a pleasant surprise, honestly, at that other safety spot when I wasn't too high on Nick Cross coming into the year. But this could be a struggle for the Indianapolis Colts secondary, especially if Allen is able to play, if Odunze is able to play, if the Bears are at their full potential with this receiving core. So Drake, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think that this is going to be something that we see the Bears really take advantage of? And maybe instead of using this game to try to get right running the football, do you see this as more of an option for Caleb Williams to come out because he's going to have the advantage just with his weapons out there?
I still think they're going to get him going running the football. Oh yeah. I think that Stevenson, I think that you've got Herbert, you've got Swift, those 3 guys right there. You can definitely use Herbert in the passing game, and then they've got another tight end in Gerald Everett. You could use him in the passing game. He's a lanky, big guy that can absolutely torch guys that aren't ready for his type of athleticism. And Cole Kmet, I've been so high on that guy. I really think that he's just a grinded out type of tight end. Reminds me a lot of Heath Miller, only with a lot more athleticism. And DJ Moore, any given game, can literally go out there, have 6 catches for 155 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, so the Colts need to be ready. I know the Bears are down Rome Odunze, but I'm looking right here. Tyler Scott, Andrew. We were high on Tyler Scott. We love Tyler Scott. So, that's a guy that in space can make things happen, and he can be a reliable receiver. Of course, they're down Allen and they're down Odunze, but man, the Colts secondary is really banged up. I think that you're leaning on guys like Samuel Womack III. You're leaning on just guys that really are not too seasoned on the field. You're just kind of like, well, you hope that they can handle a guy like DJ Moore, because it kind of has a small recipe of a breakout game of 2024 for DJ Moore. But you're just hoping that the safeties, especially guys like Cross and Blackman, can contain those huge plays. Because if you can't, I mean, it just opens up a whole slew of things. That's why Anthony Richardson is such a dangerous weapon, because one or two deep passes and it ruins the rest of your defensive game plan.
Now, Pay and Q, when you look at just the stats of it all, these wide receivers really haven't been able to get going so far within the first two games. DJ Moore leads the team in receiving yards and receptions, but it's only 11 catches for 89 yards. Romadonzi is second with 3 catches for 44 yards. Now, is that more on Caleb Williams just kind of getting used to the NFL game, or is it on the wide receivers? Is it on this offense that's not doing enough to scheme up open looks, or are they just not being able to create enough separation? What do you think the early struggles are in the passing game, and how do you think that they'd be able to fix it this weekend?
It's twofold. Caleb Williams, as we said ad nauseum at this point, he hasn't looked good. I just put it like that, period. He hasn't looked good at all. I wouldn't even say he hasn't looked okay. He's looked pretty bad in his first 2 starts. But it ain't just him. It is a complete offensive failure up to this point. Offensive line, we talked about them already, so I won't delve into that too much. But the wide receivers, Caleb Williams should have 2 touchdowns right now. His turnover to touchdown ratio should be 1-to-1. Keenan Allen, one of the best wide receivers in the league, still at his age, he dropped an easy touchdown in week 1. Romadonzi, you saw it on Sunday Night Football. It was a difficult catch, but he had both hands on the ball, and the defender didn't impede his progress to get the ball. He could have caught that, but he didn't. So that's 2 touchdowns right there off the board. Caleb Williams and the wide receivers, they need to help each other. A lot of passes in the second half of this last game from Caleb Williams, they didn't hit their mark. Some of them was short. A lot of them were short. And a lot of passes that were able to be caught, they were not completed. But I would put most of that blame on the offensive coordinator. We're not using all of our weapons to the best of their ability. I know it's only one ball and a lot of mouths to feed, but we got to do better. The play designs and the creativity is not up to par right now. The Seattle Seahawks, where Shane Waldron, our offensive coordinator, where he's come from, Geno Smith was doing a lot more than what Caleb is doing right now. And I believe Caleb can handle more than what he's given. I don't buy any of the excuses that, yes, because he is a rookie, you have to soft pedal his development. No. He's ready to go. Let him run. If he can't, I want to know as early as possible. I don't like all these 3-yard passes, quick slants and passes to the flats. All that stuff's unimaginative. And by the time you get to the second half of the game, the defense is caught up. And that's how you end up losing games. So we need to figure some things out all around so we can be the best version of ourselves, not just from Caleb, not just from the wide receivers, but everybody needs to pick their games up.
Yeah, and I think that'll come with time, as they get used to one another, as the offense gets in a flow. And I think that's what the Colts are looking at as well, because they are, whether people want to admit it or not, Anthony Richardson has 6 starts in the NFL. And he is still learning these wide receivers, and they're still building this offense and getting into their own rhythm. So I think that just comes with a young quarterback as he's trying to figure out his wide receivers. We lost Q. Hopefully he can join us back here as we kind of wrap up our talk on the Colts and the Bears. X Factor time. Let's go around the horn. We'll start with you, Drake. Give me your X Factor. Who do you think is going to be the difference maker in this game, and who comes out on top?
It's going to be Taven Bryan. I'm kidding. No, not Taven Bryan. No, sorry, Pay. We've talked a lot about Taven Bryan, so it's kind of like shell shock over here. Man, oh man, X Factor. I'm going to say the outside corners. I'm going to say the outside corners on DJ Moore. Okay. I have seen too often in Carolina and Chicago, DJ Moore has games that are literally, I'm telling you, 7-8 catches, $150, just a skosh under 200 and 2 or 3 touchdowns. The Colts up front are missing arguably their most talented player. They're missing arguably their most talented player, maybe not experienced in Kenny Moore, but their most talented cornerback in Juju Brents. I know you got your safeties, but man, DJ Moore is not to be trifled with. And Caleb Williams is still a quarterback that can make throws if you are not ready for them. So I think that you can't let those plays break open. And if they do, number 2 is the first guy I'm looking for downfield because I bet that's who Caleb's going to throw it to.
And Pay, from the Bears standpoint, who do you think the X factor is going to be from the Bears side of things?
That's a tough one. So watching the game as I was preparing for this episode, watching the Green Bay Packers sidebar, you can't lose to the Packers. Come on, guys.
They tried their best, but their best was not great. It was not great.
Watching that game back, I noticed that it isn't necessarily that Anthony Richardson and the offensive line, they struggle protecting him, and he doesn't take a lot of sacks. As my co-host said, Q said, the Packers are pretty good at drawing up game plans to attack running quarterbacks, but they didn't get to him too much. I think they had, by my count, 3 or 4 pressures the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key that we have to attack from the Bears. We have a pretty good pass rush from Montez Sweat. As we said, Javon Dexter's coming into his own. We have to be able to, one of them guys, get home. And so my X factor has got to be Javon Dexter. We got to make Anthony Richardson as uncomfortable as possible and maybe get another 3 turnover game coming from the quarterback.
Yeah, I think the more you can get pressure in Richardson's face, I think the better from the Bears standpoint. Stats Matt says that his X factor is the battle of the Colts defensive line versus the Bears offensive line. Bad on bad so far this season, and hey, that very well may be the difference in this one. For me, I'm going with Josh Downs. I think Josh Downs, he's making his season debut. The Colts have really struggled in the short to intermediate area of the passing game so far. And I think in order for this offense to get into a rhythm, to be able to sustain those drives, and to take some pressure off Anthony Richardson, I think having Josh Downs in there to be able to win, he's that quick win wide receiver, whether it's in the slot or outside, he has that capability. And the chemistry between Anthony Richardson and Josh Downs is through the roof. Josh Downs had a really strong training camp before he suffered that high ankle sprain, and really looked like Anthony Richardson's favorite target. So I would expect Josh Downs to come out and be featured in the passing game, and just, if anything, to get the easy completions to get Anthony Richardson in a rhythm. And he can also win over the top. He's mainly used short to intermediate. We saw at times last year where Josh Downs was able to kind of have like one of those DJ Moore games you talked about, Drake, where he had 5-6 catches, but for 130, 140 yards. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much Josh Downs is used in his return to the Indianapolis Colts. But guys, it's prediction time. Colts, Bears, like I said, Colts are 1.5 point favorites, but since they're the home team, that practically makes them a toss-up with the Bears at home. So let's start with you, Pay. Let's give me your prediction, score prediction, and tell me what you think happens in the game on Sunday.
I can see this game going 20-10. I would definitely take the under. Both teams, they have to prove it to me from an offensive standpoint. But 20-10, I think the Bears should be able to win by 10 points. That should not be an issue. They are further along in their reclamation project than the Colts are. Just from a defensive standpoint, our defense is loaded. Our offense, like I said, they got to figure it out. They need to prove it. But everything that I've seen out of the Colts so far, they should not be able to overpower this team, this defense, to multiple scores. 20-10, I got the Bears.
All right, got the Bears going to 2-1, and the Colts dropping to 0-3. Drake, what do you think? Do you think the Colts fall to 0-3, or do you think they get their first victory of the year?
So I'm actually going to this game, but it's going to be 21-20 Chicago.
Oh,
now,
okay.
Why I say that? The Colts got destroyed in week 1 by Joe Mixon. I mean, you heard John Gruden. He said it was real nicey, of Joe Mixon, the way he destroyed the Colts. That was with Buckner. Okay. Then you saw the Colts get destroyed by Josh Jacobs and a one-dimensional quarterback in Malik Willis. I know Chicago has struggled, and they will struggle in this game, I think, running the ball by NFL standards, but it's not hard to get past about 2 or 2.5 yards carry on the season. So Chicago's going to improve their running attack against the Colts. But I think that this defense is going to still give Richardson issues. Now, I think that Downs is going to help, but until I see no drops, until I see more, competency between him and Adonai Mitchell. By the way, everyone, 9 targets for Mitchell, 2 catches. Okay. 7 have not even hit his hands. All right. So you're talking about, well, a couple did and then he dropped them. But you know what I mean? I agree right there with Pay. The Colts haven't really shown me enough for me to think that they're going to beat a gritty team like the Bears and a defensive coordinator that will absolutely be ready for AR.
So you guys are both on the Chicago Bears. Let's go back.
Sorry.
Let's go back to the chat. Let's see what the chat is saying here. Obviously from earlier, Patrick says Colts 19, Bears 14. Sean Contwright says 27-13 Colts. Semper Colts fan is going 29-17. I think that was the Super Bowl 41 score. If I remember correctly. So hey, nice one there. Semper Colts fan. Love to bring up a Super Bowl 41. Stats Matt going Bears 13, Colts 17. So a lot of unders. I do think the under is going to hit in this one. A stat that I've been kind of holding back and I didn't bring up is yes, the Colts did give up 267 yards on the ground. But when Zaire Franklin spoke to the media this week, he said that they think they found something in that second half of the Packers game. And when I looked at it in the second half, the Colts only allowed 24 yards rushing. And Gus Bradley has also said this week that they did try to change things up in that second half, try to make things simple, not as much disguise, just go out there and play football. And it was able to work. Do I think that's going to work against the Chicago Bears? I don't know. I do think that they're still going to need to disguise, but I really don't feel like the rush defense for the Colts is going to be as porous as we have seen. Yes, Buckner isn't out there, but I don't think the Colts give up 200 yards on the ground again. I really think Josh Downs is going to be a big difference in this game, and I also think you're going to see a big game out of Jonathan Taylor. I really do. I think the Colts are going to lean on Jonathan Taylor, lean on Anthony Richardson in the quarterback run game, and then take advantage with play action, try to make things simpler for Anthony Richardson. Coming back, the Colts, I think if they want to keep their season from spiraling, they got to win this game. This is going to be a must-win game. So I'm going Colts 24, Bears 17. I do think that it's going to come down to the fourth quarter where the Colts will get a touchdown, and then it's going to end up being on the back of Caleb Williams to drive down the field and get a late touchdown to tie it up. And I'm not sure he's just not there yet to be able to do it. I think it's going to be a very close game. I feel like it's going to be a very tough physical game as well. And I think that it's going to come down to which young quarterback can really make the plays at the end of the game. And I'm going to bet on Anthony Richardson to do that. But by all means, I think it's going to be a really good game. And I definitely don't think it's the last battle that we're going to see between Richardson and Williams. So, hey, Pay, thank you so much for coming on. Tell Q we thank him as well for coming on. You guys were excellent. Love chatting with you. And before we let you go here, definitely plug all of your shows, all your socials. Tell the people where they can go find you.
I appreciate the kind words and the invite. It's been a great hour of football talk with you guys. I love that. Thanks for checking out this latest edition from the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan channel. Whether you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or watching on Twitch or YouTube, do the same. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, hit the notification bell so you never miss a drop. And to all my homies in Chicago, we say 3 things. Bear down, go Cubs go, and sell the team, Jerry.